Try as they may to be their party's answer to Pete Buttigieg, Republicans just don't have the smarts and the skills to match up to Joe Biden's Secretary of Transportation. And although Senator Josh Hawley will try to convince you that he crushed it in the Senate Judiciary hearing earlier this week, and stick around to the end and I'll show you how he's trying to spin it, there's really no denying that he got owned in front of all of his colleagues by a liberal, pro-choice Berkeley law professor who also happens to be a woman of color. Now, if you've been too busy watching the 1-6 committee torch the MAGA wing of the GOP this week, let me set the stage for you. The Senate Judiciary Committee is a plum assignment. They oversee the Department of Justice, they review judicial nominations and pending legislation. Lots of heavy hitters from the Democrats are on the committee, including Cory Booker, Jon Ossoff, Dianne Feinstein, Amy Klobuchar, and Dick Durbin. And for the minority Republicans, along with Josh Hawley, there's also Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, Marsha Blackburn, and Ted Cruz. Earlier this week, the committee met to hear testimony for a post-Roe America, the legal consequences of the Dobbs decision. Hawley, who co-sponsored a bill targeting transgender children from participating in sports, objected to the Electoral College count affirming Joe Biden's election as president, and egged on the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys who invaded the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, was questioning Khiara Bridges, a professor at UC Berkeley School of Law, who was invited to testify on reproductive rights. It did not go well for Josh. Watch and set your confetti cannons for standby.
Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing them.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist
I'm
is
denying that
dangerous.
trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So
pregnant.
you are denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where
No,
they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
So what did we learn about Josh Hawley? Well, first, when intimidated by a woman, Josh Hawley will lash out by minimizing her professional accomplishments. See, he couldn't show up Professor Bridges with verbal sparring, so he questioned her ability to be a teacher, something that she does for a living and he doesn't. That's about as weenie as you can get. Hawley may not have agreed with Bridges, but she was engaging with him on his line of questioning. So what's he so afraid of? If Josh Hawley was able to keep up with me, I would be impressed. I wouldn't attack what he does for a living by asking, hey Josh, is that the same smart mouth you use to bob for donation dollars and clean out the jam between Trump's toes? Here's something else we learned. Josh Hawley's hair is sick! Look at that Metro mane he's sporting. Helmet of velvet, I tell ya. Even at my aesthetic apex, I was only an old VHS copy of Hawley's manly mop. And we learned Josh Hawley not only has zero capacity to learn, he's seemingly quite proud of it. Yes, Josh Hawley has decided that his elected position as United States Senator, which comes, by the way, with a whole gaggle of young, hardworking aides who actually do the research, print it out on cards, and hand it to Josh so that he can sound like he's done the work himself. Josh has decided he is not required to listen to any thought or theory that challenges the few meager and small-minded notions pinging around in his head like pennies in a tin can, and he wears the ignorance proudly. See, Josh Hawley went to Stanford. Josh Hawley was Phi Beta Kappa. Josh Hawley graduated Yale Law School. Josh Hawley knows better privately. But tragically, Josh Hawley has placed his personal ambition over service to the people of the United States. That is not something anybody should tolerate in an American senator, especially one who has ambitions to become a United States president, as Josh Hawley clearly does. We've seen what happens when a callous, self-serving, bigoted gourmandise is given the authority to limit the growth of the American mind. That mind proceeds to develop a craven, festering tumor that ultimately bursts and then bleeds all over hundreds of years of good intentions, compromise, and hard American work. And how did Josh Hawley portray his being skewered by Professor Bridges on his YouTube page? You will love this. Far-left Berkeley law professor melts down when Senator Hawley asks her if men can get pregnant. That is some seriously tragic spin. For more Hawley bashing, proceed immediately to YouCantBeatBlue.com and subscribe to YouCantBeatBlue on YouTube. Then follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, and Reddit, where I'm being permanently banned on a daily basis.